So this is a video that I've been working on in my mind for weeks, probably longer than that actually. This is a video that I'm honestly now dreading making because I just don't know how it's going to be taken. I'm going to do my best to walk the line here and be fair and objective about the next knife that we talk about. And I hope that you will grant me a little bit of grace and give me a little bit of space to make my points before you start blowing me up. But why don't we talk next about the Reeve Inkosi large drop point. A little backstory. For those of you who know me, you know that I'm left-handed. And as a lefty in this world of knives, you're going to find that there's not a lot to choose from. You can, at best, hope for an ambidextrous knife, but for the most part, the knives that are out on the market with either flipper or frame lock designs are going to be right-handed. So you can either learn to deal with a right-handed knife in your left hand, or you can carry it right-handed and cut everything with your wrong hand, or you can just stick to the knives that aren't cool and trendy at the moment. So for many years I've known that Reeve offers left-handed versions of most of his knives, if not all of his knives. And because this is what many would consider to be an excellent factory-made production knife, one of the best available in North America, this is something that's always been on my radar for a long time. But until recently, I hadn't had the opportunity to even hold one, let alone use one. So let me take you through the last week of ownership of this Inkosi. To start with, the thing that attracted me to this knife is the fact that I've never used a left-handed frame lock knife. Not one time have I ever played with one. So being able to play with one and use one was a real excitement to me. Another thing that I was excited about is that I do like a titanium knife. I've had plenty of titanium knives, and this is an opportunity to try out one from a maker that I've never used. The third thing that attracted me to this knife is the non-stop, steadfast, undying love and support that Reeve fans have for Reeve knives. I don't know that I can think of another product on the market that people love more than Reeve fans love their Reeve knives. And if I could give it an analogy, one that I've been working on in my head, is that these knives are like Toyota 4Runners. If you know much about off-road vehicles, you know that the 4Runner is considered to be one of the best off-road vehicles that you can purchase, and people who own them love them, but those who are objective will look at a 4Runner and tell you that they are lagging behind the competition in many ways in terms of features. If you go drive a 2020 Toyota Tacoma, you're going to find that it doesn't have remote start, and the answer that Toyota tells you is that the technology is not perfected. Well, that's a ridiculous answer when you consider that every other car under the sun has remote start. Their radios are terrible, their tech in terms of dashboard is terrible, and the other features that they have are nowhere close for the money to all the other things that are available in the market. That being said, people who buy Toyota 4Runners love Toyota 4Runners, and you will never hear them complain about the fact that the radio is not as good as, I don't know, a Kia. To me, the Reeve knife is not that dissimilar from that analogy. This knife at one point was a game changer in the industry. This was a knife that was brand new in the market, and in the year 2000 it won an award at an international knife show for best manufacturing, best overwhelmingly awesome knife. And year after year they win awards for their production quality. And to be fair, for a $450 knife, this is a very well-made knife. And you know something, when I started this video, I told myself I wasn't going to bring price into it because I hate when people talk about for the money. It's one of my least favorite ways to talk about anything in this world is for the money. I don't know. It's it's a saying that people say. It doesn't serve any purpose. And here I am using it to describe this knife, because it's just such a part of the conversation when we talk about Chris Reeve. So what do I like about this knife? I like the fact that this knife feels like I could take it to battle. It's heavy. Did I mention it's heavy? It has a good grip. When I hold the knife, there is no doubt that I'm not going to drop it. The jimping on the blade is nice for my thumb, and when I'm holding it, I feel like I could really get some stuff done. The blade stock is not thin and not small. The blade stock is substantial, and even though it's a drop point, I don't really fear at all that I'm going to damage this knife by using it. So there are some polyprissy frou-frou knives out there that when you hold them and when you use them, you're kind of worried that you're going to blow them up just by touching them. This is not one of those knives. So I suppose if I were in the wilderness and I needed a knife that was going to be reliable and durable, this would be a wise decision. What else do I like about the knife? I like the fact that it's left-handed. I appreciate that. I really, truly do. It is not easy for them to manufacture a left-handed knife for 9% of the population out there. And I appreciate the fact that they do that. It is not lost on me that they do go above and beyond for that. Some things that I'm having a hard time getting used to. Number one, I am not a lanyard guy. Now, they're not technically a lanyard. It's more of a pigtail. A lanyard wraps around your wrist. None of you use a lanyard. Everybody's using a pigtail or some sort of piece of string on the back of their knife. I am not a fan of those. And when I got this knife in the mail, it had one attached to it already. The first thing I did was I pulled out my Spyderco and I cut it off. And that was because I just didn't see the point in having that little piece of shoelace on there. Didn't seem like it was a necessary part of the knife. And then you know what I did? I put it in my pocket, and the first time I needed to pull it out of my pocket, I realized why everybody keeps a ripcord on their knife, because these things are actually kind of difficult to get out of the pocket. For one thing, the grip and the back of the knife is not as large as what I'm accustomed to, and then the clip has a double bend in it to make sure it doesn't fall out of your pocket. Appreciate that. Nice feature. But I really don't want to have to resort to have a little piece of string on the back of my knife in order to get it out of my pocket. That's just me. I'm just crazy like that. But for me, that was a disappointment. The other thing that I'm having a very hard time getting used to is the action of this knife. These knives are legitimately hard to open. I said it out loud. I said it. They're hard to open. Just because bank vaults move slowly and bank vaults are strong and durable, that doesn't mean a bank vault style pivot is ideal in a pocket knife. I don't have small hands. I don't have wimpy hands, but I'm telling you, this knife is difficult to open one-handed. Part of the problem is when I open it, if my fingers make any contact at all with the lock or with the blade stock, it's going to prohibit that thing from opening. And I can't help it, but with my large fingers, I'm having a hard time holding the knife and opening it at the same time. So I have to actually consciously be mindful of where my fingers are placed when I'm trying to open the knife. Well, that means I'm having to plant it in the palm of my hand, and now I'm overthinking it. I'm spending way too much time thinking about how I'm opening the knife rather than just using the knife. The thumb stud doesn't exactly give me a good grip. The way that it's rubbed over on the top and it's sort of stair-stepped, there's not a lot of grip on it. And even though we have a good amount of cutout here, I do feel like it needs a little bit more in order to get behind the thumb stud. So my friend Jake over at Bearded Gear likes to say holes over studs. I appreciate in a new way what he's trying to say by saying holes over studs. The Spidey hole is really a superior way to open a knife, in my mind, to a thumb stud. Now, it does have its disadvantages, right? It makes the blade stock taller. It makes the blades probably weaker for having that giant hole cut in it. Lateral movement of the blade is much more likely to snap a Spyderco than it is a Chris Reeve. So points to Chris Reeve there for making the more durable style of knife. But to me, not being able to open my cutting tool makes it a less effective cutting tool, if that makes sense. Another criticism I have of this knife, and I'm not the only one to talk about it, is this finish on the titanium. I don't know that it could be more delicate. I mean, it feels like it's sandy. And when I bought the knife, the first thing I did was I grabbed a little piece of magic eraser and I wiped it down with some rubbing alcohol to see if there was just something stuck to it. And I still can't figure out if these snail trails are caused by scuffing of the titanium or if it's material that's been left behind as it's sanded off on the scale. But there are many different ways to finish out titanium that don't involve this sandblasted feel. So I'm a little surprised about the finish of the titanium. I had read and heard that it's delicate, and when I look at the Chris Reeve knife forums, I find that a lot of people have to talk about the snail trails, and they're devaluing a legitimately excellent knife because of the fact that it's showing wear. And I would tell you that I don't think you can touch these without wearing it, without leaving behind some sort of evidence. Back to my Toyota 4Runner analogy. By the way, I drive a 4Runner, so I can speak from experience on this. Something else about these knives is the blade steel. The blade steel that they use is S35VN. Now, S35VN is a crucible steel, and it was designed to be an improvement on S30V, which at the time had sort of become the industry default for a good pocket knife steel. The purpose of S35VN was to make a steel that was slightly tougher and better for bushcraft. And from all the data that I've read and all of the analysis that I've seen, whether it's knifesteelnerds.com or from Pete at Cedric and Ada or any number of other field tests that I've seen of S35VN, I don't know that this steel is significantly tougher than S30V. It might be a little bit tougher. Another respected source that I know is Michael Christie, who talks about S35VN in a non-complimentary way, and his large criticism of the steel is that it can be difficult to sharpen. I have found as well that S35VN can be difficult to sharpen. I guess my beef with this knife is that if you even discuss the concept of other steels, they're just simply not available at Chris Reeve at all. And they don't really seem to have any interest in even exploring these other steels that are on the market. And as a Spyderco guy, which you might have noticed from my little sticker here, as a Spyderco guy, I can think of 10 steels that are tougher with better edge retention than this steel. So I don't understand why this company has hitched its wagon to a fine steel, a good steel, but it is not a premium steel, and it is not a world-class steel. There are other world-class steels that would do justice to this knife and really improve the product overall, and I don't know that it's going to add a significant amount to the cost of the knife either. So when we think about everything I just said, I'm having a hard time loving this knife. I can excuse the blade steel, I can excuse the snail trails, I can excuse the pocket clip situation. Those things matter much less to me than just simply usability of the knife. And what it comes back to for me is this pivot is much too sticky and tight. And I've heard the phrase hydraulic. Well, the pivot's hydraulic, Jason. Well, why would it be hydraulic? Why would we even want it to be hydraulic? That's a very, very strange thing to say about a pivot on a pocket knife. If the premium pocket knives are using bearing systems to make them have less friction so that they open effortlessly, I don't know why hydraulic would be a positive thing. So there's an old joke in sales that it's not a flaw, it's a feature. And part of me thinks that the hydraulic conversation, that romantic notion that this is somehow like a bank vault or it's hydraulic, I think that that is a crafty salesperson finding a feature out of a flaw. I took the knife apart to try to understand better about what's going on, and I found a washer inside the knife that could be approximately described as a Millennium Falcon sized washer. And if I hold it up here, you can see that the washer is about 1.5 inches in diameter. It is not round, and it is perforated with holes in it, large, peculiar shaped holes to hold grease. That's right, this knife comes with a package of lithium grease, and the preferred method for lubricating this pivot is lithium grease. I can't think of any other knives on the market, and there are probably many that I don't know about because I don't know everything. But I can't think of any other knives on the market that use lithium grease to lubricate a pivot. That is a very, very strange choice. Now, lithium grease, on one hand, is nice because it's probably waterproof, which would make this knife resilient in the bush. But on the other side of that, lithium grease is going to have a higher coefficient of friction than a small phosphor bronze washer with a little bit of knife pivot lube on it, or a bearing system that's going to glide the knife open and closed. It just makes this knife hard to open. I didn't even talk about the D10 yet. I think the D10 is too tight on this knife. I'm going to have to do some exploring, and perhaps one of you can recommend somebody out there that knows something about CRK D10s. That initial point of opening just is surprisingly tight. I'm really not afraid of this knife opening in my pocket. For one thing, hydraulic, right? For another thing, I have plenty of loose flipping knives that never open in my pocket, so not really worried about this one. Overall, I'm now going to break my rule for the second time, and I'm going to talk about for the money. I do agree that money is a consideration because we can't say that a $2,000 custom-made knife is better than this knife, therefore this thing is crap. That is a silly argument, and it's not one that I'm attempting to make now. I can say that had I not found this knife secondhand at a very good deal, I would not have pulled the trigger on it, because at $450 retail price, I have a very hard time finding how this knife could possibly be better than any number of other knives that are available on the market right now. You can even buy other knives and customize them to reach the features that are available on this knife, and you're still coming in much shorter in terms of dollars than you would find on a Chris Reeve knife. So if I had the keys to the factory and I could make some changes to this knife, the first thing that I would address is the nature of the pivot. I would really want to find a way to make this thing open smoother and make it open easier. There's just simply too many other companies on the market that make titanium frame lock knives that open like butter, and I don't see them breaking. I don't see them falling apart. They're used in the woods all the time, and I just don't know why this particular company is so averse to change and so averse to modifying their product. That would be the first thing I would address. The second thing I would address is the use of the steels. In this day and age, where you have 10, maybe more steels available, that would make this a superior knife. I don't know why a company of this caliber, of this such a well-respected company, wouldn't pursue that, but they don't pay me to make decisions at Chris Reeve, so that's my opinion. The third thing that I would address is the finish on the titanium. I just am very dissatisfied with the fact that this knife is steeped in history and in honor and respect in the knife community, and I get it, and there's all these snail marks on the titanium. I don't know why in the world they wouldn't be able to put a different type of finish on the titanium. I know enough about that to know that there are other ways to finish it where it would be less likely to show damage. But this is the knife. On the positive side, take that thing anywhere, and I can cut up just about anything with it, and it's going to serve its purpose well. So I hope you're able to hear me with a grain of salt and take my opinion for what it's worth. It's just my own personal opinion. This company does many, many great things in terms of building a knife that's reliable and durable. You can literally trust your life to. But I do think that there are some opportunities to make this knife a little bit better that won't adversely affect the price of the knife and can be done at a reasonable cost to the company. I don't think there's a lot of R&D that needs to be done, in particular because a lot of this is well-traveled roads. So I hope in the future we're going to see more innovation from Chris Reeve, and perhaps a new Generation 2 pivot. I would be the first in line to go and try it myself and see what it's all about. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to continue the conversation about pocket knives, please join us at our group. We're the Millie Paramilitary 2 Para 3 Club. You're going to find us on Facebook. You'll find us on Instagram. Down below, you're going to find links to our site where you can join us. Please like and subscribe the video, and I hope to bring you more content in the future. Thanks a lot.